for the first time, I have two doctors, one in Brazil and one here. And one is okay with carnivore, one is not okay with carnivore. But for the first time, both of them, they looked at my labs and they were like, whoa, this is really good. You know, everything was within a normal range. Nothing was high, low. Everything was like consistent. And I was like, can I come off this medication? Like, is it working? And they were like, honestly, like everything looks so good. Like that's a possibility. You could try that. She was saying, okay, yeah, with everything looking so good, we can begin to start coming off of it. And you see like all these medication too. It's funny, that reminded me. You see some commercials, it's like, oh, do you feel this? Take this medication. It might kill you, but consult with your doctor to see if you need it. It's like, oh, why? What?
Welcome to the Plant-Free MD podcast with Dr. Anthony Chaffee, where we discuss diet and nutrition and how this affects health and chronic disease, and show you how you can use this to optimize your health and happiness, both mentally and physically. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Plant-Free MD. I'm your host, Dr. Anthony Chaffee, and today I have a very special guest, victoriaaferrazz. Hope I'm pronouncing that right. I actually didn't ask if that was pronounced. I get that right. Good. Well,
you did.
Okay, good. Well, Victoria and I have spoken on Instagram, and she and her mother were actually getting started on a carnivore diet. Actually had a pretty interesting time with it, and so I thought that it would be good to get your story. So thank you very much for coming on and sharing your story with everyone.
Thank you so much for having me.
No, you're welcome. So for people who haven't come across you and don't know you, can you tell us a bit about yourself and why you're here?
So I'm Victoria. I'm 23 years old, and I've been carnivore for 10 months now. I am here today because in my late teens and early adulthood, I started noticing that symptoms I was feeling weren't normal when I was being told that everything was normal. It was gut issues causing like a lot of bloating, not eating and eating, a lot of irregular cycles, lots of headaches, unusual breakouts. And then at 9, at a very early age, I was told that I had hypothyroidism. And I discovered that at a very early age because of my mom. She has Hashimoto's. So I would always do check-ins. And with that, I've always had symptoms. So like a lot of lack of energy, hair loss, and all that comes with it. And I was just not happy with the way I was feeling. And that's when I started getting into all the health stuff and supplements and eating organic. And yeah, with that, I was vegan for a year. That led me to being vegan. And then more issues came up. And because of these issues, I decided to just stop and go back to eating everything because it wasn't helping. And then my mom found carnivore, and I decided to try it. And here I am today.
Yeah.
With all my problems fixed.
Oh, good. All right. So, well, I mean, that's sort of a good place to go. So what did you notice when you changed? Obviously, you were on a vegan diet, which everyone says is the end all be all. Of course, all the vegans will say we just weren't doing it right. Obviously, you weren't doing the right kind of vegan because no one quits the right kind of vegan, even though most people quit vegan within a year.
It's a lifestyle. You can't quit it.
That's it, or you'll get excommunicated and persecuted. That's basically why you can't quit.
Exactly. So before that, again, it was the gut issues with bloating, headaches, irregular cycles, and I did want to also lose weight. And once I saw all the vegan stuff, how you need your greens and your green juices, smoothies, and the ginger shots, that boost your immunity, and you have to eat your plants so you could be healthy and thin. So because I was already in the realm of all the organic stuff, and when you're shopping at Whole Foods and Sprouts, it's kind of even easier to buy into it because their meat section is like this big in the very back of the store. So it's just like everything plant-based mostly. I bought into that, and I started taking out sugars and carbs, and then it led me to, okay, let me take out all meat. I never thought that meat was, going to kill me or the problem. I was just simply, oh, okay, we don't need meat. That's fine. And decided to go plant-based. With that, at first, everything was okay. But then once I started getting my labs done, I knew, well, I saw that I was deficient in many areas. So I always say, and people who know me, that I think that supplementation is what kept me going within that year.
Mhm.
I've always been on supplementation, doing cleanses like parasite cleanses, candida cleanse, liver cleanse, heavy metal cleanse, or detoxes, and nothing would help. So, with that, within that year, I started having anxiety attacks that I never had before. I had sinus issues that were really, really bad. More, not more, but the same gut issues that wouldn't go away. Irregular cycle continued. However, this time it would never ever come on time. It was always like either really heavy or really light, and it's like a lot of pain. I've always had pain with the cycle to the point where my blood pressure goes really low. I start fainting. So I could never be alone during this time. My mom would always stay with me. Towards the end of my vegan year, I started noticing as well TMJ symptoms, and all my symptoms just got worse.
Sure.
So I was like, okay, oh, one thing happened. I lost weight. Well, I lost my muscle mass. I didn't lose fat, but growing up, I had a lot of muscle mass and I wanted to lose this fat. And with veganism, I lost like a lot of muscle mass. And we know that's not healthy, right?
Mm.
People would even look at me and be like, are you okay? Are you eating? Because I was so thin and it was very
Mm.
noticeable.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so that was the only benefit, right, that I saw. And towards the end of that, I was like, okay, this isn't helping. I thought it was going to fix at least something, but nothing. So I decided to just go back to eating normal because I would see all my friends eat like a nice, juicy burger, and there's me with my impossible burger, dry, tasteless.
Mhm.
And it was all like the almond milks, oat milks. And even then, I would be going to the doctor and I'd say, hey, I'm feeling like this. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I eat organic, everything. I don't do dairy, this and that. And all the answers were just like, well, I don't know. Maybe we should put you on like birth control or let's try this and that for, pain. And it's like, okay. So, yeah, I went back to eating everything. With that, symptoms didn't get better, more breakouts, more sinus issues, TMJ symptoms got worse, more bloating. And I've never been the type to like eat just, pizza every day or hamburgers every day. I try to uh, be cautious with my meals.
Mhm.
But and my mom, she knows the struggle. I would always come up to her and be like, Mom, like, what am I doing wrong? Like I'm trying to eat differently. I take supplements, I do the cleanses. Something's gotta give. Like, what's
Mhm.
going on? And I'm happy that at an early age, I knew it was like something related to diet because I kept trying to change everything about it, but nothing was working. So she comes to me and she's like, we have to buy this course. It was a carnivore 30-day course. And I was like, what? And she was like, we have to do it. People are losing weight and they're getting better. They're curing autoimmune issues. And I'm like, oh goodness, what is this now?
Yeah.
And she shows me and she's like, oh, I'm like, what do you do? And she's like, you eat meat. And I'm like, hold on, what? Like only meat? That okay? Like, is that possible? I knew, like, growing up also Brazilian, meat is like big for us.
Mm.
So I never, thought that meat was bad, but only eating meat. And I started looking into it. That's when we were doing all the researches, seeing all the videos and learning about everything. And it really does rewire your brain and your way of thinking. But because I had tried everything, and at this point I was like, okay, this is honestly my last resort. What do I have to lose? And I decided to try it with her. We got the course and we started going. And I didn't go into it slow. I just jumped right in. I was like, this is going to work or it's not because I'm done. I'm tired of like trying and never getting something right. And I did like no supplementation, no nothing, just straight, high fat carnivore. And then I started seeing results. And here I am.
Nice. And so,
Yeah.
so who's what was the 30-day course that you guys did?
Dr. Counts.
Oh, good.
30 day, uh-huh.
And so that went well. Obviously, you stuck
It
with it.
yeah, it did, it did.
Yeah.
My mom's had a hard time, but I stuck with it because I did see a lot of change in the first, like, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, I started noticing a lot of differences. And then like 3, 4 months, you feel like a superhero.
Right.
You
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
And people are so used to feeling bad and sick that they don't know what feeling good feels like.
Yeah.
So, like all those things that were normal and I knew they weren't normal, it's like, hold on, now I'm normal because I don't feel that stuff anymore.
Yeah. Oh, that's perfect. Well, how's your mom doing?
She's good. She tries to do carnivore, but it's hard
Hmm.
because, she wants to eat everything else.
Yeah.
But I don't know. We're still going.
Well, I think the thing is too is hopefully she's seeing some benefits anyway. Just eating more meat is going to be good for you. You get a lot of nutrition you need. It ends up sort of supplanting the other things that you don't want. You're at least more conscious about the things that you're
It,
eating, and so often that can help.
it actually did. So she has one kidney. And in the beginning, her oxalate dumping process, as I reached out,
Mm,
was really, really bad. Mine was smooth. I was off for
mm,
a few days, but then it was fine. And we were scared because of her one kidney and all these
mm,
things that you hear about protein in kidney. But then you go look at the studies, and there's not one that actually says meat alone is bad for your kidney, right?
mm.
Like all these other factors involved. So with that, she was kind of like okay with it. And her labs actually, like GFR and like creatine, bun creatine, and all of that, that actually improved. So it was kind of like, oh,
Yeah.
even though the oxalate dumping was harsh, but
Mm.
afterwards, we saw the benefit.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I looked into that early on because I was, that was the thing. I've never actually been shown any actual data to show that higher protein diets cause damage to the kidney. It's just sort of like just a rumor that sort of just mixes around there. And one thing I noticed going through medical school was that any preconceived notions you had coming into medical school became solidified in doctrine in your head because, well, I'm a doctor now. And,
Mhm.
"Oh, yes, well, that's a thing. Oh, yeah, no, you don't wanna do that." And so you could now say it with authority, basically what you've just sort of thought to be true, but didn't actually get taught to you during your training. It's just something that well, everyone knows this, and now I'm a doctor, and yes, that's what that is, and you're just repeating or regurgitating the same nonsense. But then when you actually looked into it, and I heard some nephrologists talking about that, some people that concentrate on the kidney as a specialty, and they were saying actually the studies show the exact opposite. They actually show that higher protein diets are actually better for the kidneys, actually improve kidney function. And these are studies going that have gone span decades showing this. Really just a rumor. I've sort of, you know, just guessed at around half or more of the things that we hold as truths in medicine are really just best guess. You look back at the origins of them, and it's just someone made the best guess that they could at the time. And I've seen this in real life where people say, "Hey, we don't have protocols, we don't have guidelines on this yet." So this is we sort of tried to put some together using the best available information that we have now. But this isn't perfect.
Yeah.
This is just us sort of trying to make the best recommendations we can with the limited available information. And then that's good enough, and it gets published from a top tier university, and then it gets taken up by other people. Okay, well, why not? It's the only set of guidelines out there, and they just do it, and they do it, and then it gets taught, and it gets told to other people, and then it gets put in textbooks, and then all of a sudden it's gospel. Yes, this is how you do this, and you look back, okay, where did that come from? Came from somebody guessing and doing the best job that they could at the time with the information they had, which was not much. And when you realize that, you get sort of, okay, what the hell else is going on here that's just really a random guess, and it's a lot of that. And so yeah.
Yeah, it is. And it's like I always say, I'm not a doctor, but it's called practicing medicine. It's called healthcare for a reason because you need to practice it. You need to go, right? Do your research and not just, okay, this is what I learned. That's it. I'm just going to go tell people, diagnose, prescribe, diagnose, prescribe. Let's not find the root cause. This is what I learned. That's it. And you're saying. And it's again, if people go into it, it's like you're practicing medicine. You need to like do your research and help people with their root cause. And it's funny that you mentioned, I'm going to say this wrong, the nephrologist. Am I saying
Nephrologist.
that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Her nephrologist, I thought he was going to be like, whoa, no, no protein. But when she went and started talking about it, he was like, whoa, you know what? Actually, that is good. And the oxalates, yeah, that is true. So I was like
Yeah.
very surprised by that.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, because this is something that we get taught in medical school, that a large portion of kidney stones are calcium oxalate stones, and you get taught um, the calcium side of that. It's like, oh, don't take too much calcium. Don't take,
Uh-huh.
calcium supplements or water with more calcium or a bunch of dairy with calcium. Oh, you can get these calcium oxalate stones. Well, the calcium's there, right? But where do the oxalates come from? The calcium's supposed to be there. They get stripped out of your blood from the oxalates. The oxalates aren't supposed to be there. There's some oxalates produced in normal protein metabolism, collagen metabolism, a couple milligrams per day, right? Your body can deal with about 150 milligrams a day. It's when you're getting 2, 300, 400, 500, 600, 5,000 a day that you start running into problems. And that's when you're eating high oxalate, vegetables and
Mhm.
fruits. Avocados are actually pretty high in oxalates, especially if they're picked unripe, because unripe fruit actually has a much higher concentration of defense chemicals because they're defending the seed. They don't want the fruit eaten when the seed's not ready. And so there's a much higher concentration of defense chemicals. So it's about 4 times the number of oxalates in avocados before they're ripe. And the tree has to actually pull those toxins out. They don't just degrade in the fruit. So if you pick it green, they don't go anywhere. They stay in the fruit. And so that's been shown in studies with tomatoes. They don't detoxify
Okay.
if you pick them green. And so, it's an extrapolation onto other fruits, but it's sort of a concept, I mean, where are those oxalates going? What are they breaking down into? Are they breaking down? If it's not doing it in other fruits, why would it be doing it in those fruits? It could be, but it's just you're rolling the dice. And so we don't think about that. And yes, we have all these calcium oxalate stones, and people get a lot of problems with that. And then I actually remember that in my second year, I did a term in the emergency department, emergency room. That was something that was taught to me then, was that people coming in with kidney stones and things like that, you sort of ask them what they're eating and see if they're eating a lot of spinach, which is a high oxalate food, and that seemed to be a common thing. It's like, okay, you need to cut out those sorts of things. And it's funny because this is out there, this is known about, but then we don't think about it outside of very, very particular sets of circumstances, and then only some people, which is interesting. Hey guys, just want to take a second to thank our sponsor, Carnivore Bar. I don't promote many products because honestly, all you need to be healthy is to just eat meat. For those times that you're out hiking, road tripping, or stuck at work and you want a nutritious snack that is just meat, fat, and salt if you want it, the Carnivore Bar is a great option. So I like this product not because it's just pure meat, but also because I want the carnivore market to thrive as well. And the more we support meat-only products, the more meat-only products there will be available in the mainstream. So if this sounds like something you'd like to get behind, check it out using my discount code Anthony to get 10% off, which also applies to subscriptions, giving you 25% off total. All right, thanks guys.
And what you hear is it's not until you have a problem that you need to cure or try to fix
Hmm.
it. They don't prevent it. So it's like, oh, you don't have kidney stones, continue to eat oxalates, you're fine. You get kidney stones, oh my gosh, stop the oxalates. But it's like, where do you to stop before?
Yeah. Well, that was sort of my take with, like sweets and fruits and things like that. It's like, oh, well, it's okay if you're metabolically flexible, you're metabolically healthy, then you can eat, fruit and sugar and honey and things like that. It's like, okay, well, if you are metabolically healthy, that's a sure way to stop that real quick.
Just true.
Yeah, it's like saying, okay, well, if you don't have lead poisoning, it's okay to have water from leaded pipes. Okay, why? Can't you get lead poisoning eventually? Yeah, of course you can. If you have lead poisoning, yeah, the last thing you want to do is have more lead poisoning. That'd be a bad
Hmm.
idea and make that worse. But that doesn't mean that it's okay to have lead if you're not quite there yet. How about you just
Right.
avoid the lead altogether and avoid the problem?
I actually have a question. Would you, because I see a lot of animal-based or carnivore, they actually do, use avocado as a fat. I didn't know it was high oxalate. I did look into it because
Mhm.
I don't even focus on that. I just try to use, tallow and
Yeah.
butter, a lot of butter. I love butter.
Yeah.
um, but yeah, and they do some fruits and they say berries. What is your take on that? Do you think if you've been a carnivore for a long time to where your body may actually be able to handle some of that, you can do it in terms of, you want something different, or is it completely like, no, none of that?
You can certainly handle things, but you can also handle a bit of lead. You can handle a bit of arsenic and
As you
cyanide.
said.
It's just, yeah, but and your body can tolerate it. Your body can tolerate up, about 150 milligrams of oxalates. Sure. The thing is that most things that come with oxalates, especially in that to that degree, probably come with other things as well. And so, okay, you can deal with 100 milligrams of oxalates. Okay, you can deal with it, but is that optimal? Is that making you feel your best? Is that making your body work the best? Is your body what sort of systems and enzymes is your body dedicating to treat that and detoxify that it could be doing other things with? You have the P450 enzymatic detoxification system in your liver, and that those enzymes are used for many, many different processes in the body. Yes, they're used for detoxification, but that detoxification process can be used by varied sort of means. So, if you have grapefruit, for example, grapefruit has different defense chemicals called furanocoumarins. All citrus has furanocoumarins, and these are toxins, and your body has to detoxify them. So your liver detoxifies them, and the ones from grapefruit
Mhm.
are detoxified by specific enzymes. That enzyme is very commonly used in certain medications, and so those enzymes are basically trying to detoxify out these medications, which it perceives as some sort of toxin and is trying to get rid of it. And so this is why it only lasts. You can't just take one pill and it's there for life. It's your body's like, no, 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 get that the hell out of here. And so it's the same enzyme. And so if you use up a lot of that enzyme because you're taking in grapefruit, you won't have enough enzyme to process the medication. So it could be that the medication, when you take it in that pill form, that's its active form. And so that'll work. And then it has to detox and clear out. And you're expecting it to clear out at a certain rate, which is then you're taking the next pill and the next pill and the next pill. If it's not clearing it out, it's not detoxifying it, and you're just taking it at a steady state, you're going to get into a toxic range pretty quickly. And then the other side of that is if it needs to be metabolized into its active form and you don't have enough, then it's going to be underactive. So you can get toxic
Mm.
level or, no effect really. And so you just get varying responses with medications you're taking. And that's just one example. But your body is going to be able to deal with a lot. And we have people eating just high octane garbage and they're alive. What does that mean? The
Yeah.
body's amazing. It doesn't
Yeah.
mean that it comes without a cost. And so, that's a gradient. So you have a little bit, you'll be okay. But I've noticed, and I know a lot of people that have noticed that even just adding in a little bit of these things, it does affect you a bit. I'll get my nose is sort of itchy, my eyes will get sort of itchy, I'll get the stuffy nose or something like that. It's minor things, but they bug me because I'm not supposed to have any of those things.
Mhm.
I feel great all the time usually. And so I don't think that it's necessary anyway, certainly not required. We didn't evolve on berries. Birds evolved with berries mostly. And so, you don't necessarily want those. They do have defense chemicals. Blueberries have oxalates. They have other sorts of things in them as well. Are they as bad as other things? No. Hemlock is worse than most things. But, that doesn't mean that it's 100% good for you. And so, I just sort of go off the idea that if it's not optimal for me and it's not necessary, I don't want it, because if it's not providing an absolute benefit like meat will, then it's not needed. It's not necessary. Like, okay, you want something sweet or whatever, you could do that. but
Mhm.
you run the risk of wanting more and wanting more and having a bit more sweet things and a bit more sweet things, a bit more berries, and then you get enough fructose, which is addictive, that you start having a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. Then you start saying, well, maybe honey's okay, and that's very highly concentrated
Yeah.
fructose and sugar. That's very addictive. Is it as bad as table sugar? No, it has things that are beneficial, but it has fructose, which is detrimental, and it's addictive, and that becomes more and more. And I've seen some people are able to handle it, and I don't think that they're as healthy as they could be, um, at all. But they're they're you know they're happy with what they're doing. But I see a lot of other people that don't do very well at all, and they end up feeling a lot worse, but they start eating this addictive substance, and it becomes more addictive, and they start having more and more and adding more and more. And within 6 months, they're back on the couch eating pizza, drinking sodas, and they've regained all the weight and they've lost all the health improvements that they've had. And that's something that I've seen quite a few times. And so that's why I get pretty wary about adding in things like fruit and honey. The thing you need to realize as well, and that people should know, is that people think that, well, fruit is designed to be eaten. The plant wants you to eat that. Okay, that's half correct. The plant wants something to eat that fruit, not necessarily you. A lot of these fruits have co-evolved with other animals, oftentimes birds, and they eat those fruits and then they move those seeds. And a lot of the seeds can't even germinate unless they go through the digestive tract of a bird, sometimes a specific bird. So cassowary birds are in the tropics, certain areas of the tropics, and they're frugivores. They only eat fruit. And so they eat about 150 different varieties of fruit and berries, tropical fruits and berries, all of them which will kill you. All of them will kill nearly every other animal on earth besides the cassowary bird, because those seeds won't germinate if they're not eaten by a cassowary bird. So they have to be very attractive to a cassowary bird and very, very toxic and a big detriment to other animals, so they don't get eaten by anything else. Because if the cassowary bird leaves an area where they don't eat that seed, it won't turn into a plant, and so those plants will die out. And so that's a lot of fruits and berries. If you go walking in the woods, you'll see a lot of fruits and a lot of berries that you've never seen before in your life, and you'd be pretty foolish to try to eat them. They're fruits, though. The plant wants you to eat them. No, they don't. They want something else to eat them. So let's just be careful about that. A lot of fruits and berries that we've cultivated are a lot sweeter than they would have been otherwise. Been cultivated to be very sweet, so they have a lot higher sugar. Most of the the fruits and things like that, their original forms were much less sweet, had much bigger seeds, much harder to eat, much less enjoyable. And so the ones that we're eating now, whereas they're not as bad as a lot of other things, um, are they better than a steak? No. Are they necessary? Are they required? Are they something that we had to have, or we would have died during the ice ages? No. They didn't exist during the ice ages. Certainly not during the ice times. And a lot of these things didn't even exist at all.
Mhm.
Bred intensively to get that way. So I think it's best to be avoided. If people want to add in a bit of things here and there, that's certainly their choice, and you can see how they feel. And if they don't feel that it is detracting from them and they enjoy it, then that's fine. I avoid it just on principle. They have things in there that I don't want, and I don't want to put anything in my body that's not optimal for my body. And when I have had things like, I haven't eaten a piece of fruit in bloody years, but things like seasonings and things like that, if I'm at like a restaurant and just sort of get in, I would notice a difference.
Uh-huh.
I just don't want that. It's actually interesting. My mom gave me a book for Christmas. It was called The Most Delicious Poisons. And it was all about seasonings and the spices that we use, and how these are actually some of the most potent toxins that the plants
Mhm.
use to stop animals from eating them. And we're like, oh, tastes great. Let's put it on my salami. And so It's sort of
Right.
funny, but we use tiny amounts, right? If you had a mouthful of these things, you really hurt yourself. I mean, all people have to do is look up the cinnamon challenge on YouTube, and you'll see, that a mouthful of cinnamon, and people are, oh my God, they're like volcano
Crazy.
spluttering. Yeah, because that's what that is. Your body's reacting viscerally, saying, "This is poison. This is toxic. Get this the hell out of you."
I think even so as a carnivore, your palate changes and any little seasoning you do
Yeah.
notice the difference and it just doesn't even taste that good. With the fruits and everything, I also do feel that. It's crazy
Mhm.
because if I do try to go another like, "Oh, I'm feeling good. Let me have like piece of bread," because like in the beginning I was feeling so good, so I'd kind of be like, "You know what? Can I have this today?" Or like the blueberries, but I would feel it instantly. My TMJ symptoms starts hurting. My jaws starts locking
Mhm.
right after I eat these things. And I'm like, wow. And then the next day I'm sluggish and it's like a truck hit me if I try to eat any of that. So I'm like, yeah, okay, you know what? I have to stay away from it. And
Yeah.
it's just crazy because you see how toxic it is. And then you see all these people say, oh, I don't eat sugar. I just eat fruits. And it's like, oh, okay. Okay. Or they're feeding babies, and it's like, oh yeah, I don't feed my baby any sugar, but then this child is eating strawberries and bananas all day, and then the child's not sleeping, and you don't know why the child's not sleeping when it's just eating all this sugar.
Yeah. Yeah. So
And it's funny.
I don't do cocaine. I just smoke crack, so that's fine.
There you
It's
go.
not
There you
cocaine.
go.
It's not technically cocaine. It's good. Um, yeah, that's funny. Well, that it's great that you came across this and have got at it at such a young age as well, because most people, they come across this when they have quite serious health issues. Unfortunately,
Mhm.
you had to sort of deal with that. Um, have all your health issues resolved at this point, or are you still in the process?
Yes, everything has gotten better. I'm not bloated anymore. I'm not anxious anymore. I'm happier than ever, actually, and I feel it. The compared to before. My skin started clearing up a lot, no sinus issues. My even so I lost body fat and gained muscle mass, which was amazing because it's like that lean physique that we all or I want. And cycle, that was really big. Always on time. It's not like really heavy or light or like long. And I think like people even listening, if you're having these irregularities, is that am I saying that right? I might be wrong. In your cycle, it's not normal because I've also experienced all these like things, and then now it's like always on time, no pain. And that's crazy for someone who's been dealing with pain like my whole life.
Mhm.
And then with my thyroid as well. So I have to say that I never took, I'm going to pronounce this wrong, levothyroxine, which is a thyroid medication. Okay. I never took that because my mom had the experience with it. And I started with compounded T4, T3 because levothyroxine doesn't have T3, which we need it to
Mhm.
provide the conversions for the thyroid. And it's absolute trash. And then you have people taking this, feeling worse, and then they end up going and getting their thyroid taken out,
Yeah.
and instead of fixing the root cause. But so it was 6 months into carnivore. I did labs, and for the first time, my labs were always fluctuating with like T3 free, T3 reverse serum, TPO, TSH, T4, all of that. It was never within a good normal range. It was always one's okay, and then everything else is kind of bad. And with that, it's always like, can I get off this medication? No, you get it for the rest of your life because all medication that we get, we are dependent on it. And if you're getting off of it, that's insane. And for the first time, I have two doctors, one in Brazil and one here. And one is okay with carnivore, one is not okay with carnivore.
Yeah.
But for the first time, both of them, they looked at my labs and they were like, whoa, this is really good. Everything was within a normal range. Nothing was high, low. Everything was like consistent. And I was like, can I come off this medication? Like, is it working? And they were like, honestly, like everything looks so good. Like that's a possibility. You could try that.
Yeah.
And because I'm more, I check in more with the one in Brazil. So she was like, okay, if I were to get your, if I, because she keeps up with me and like my history of labs and everything, even with the diet as well, she knows about it. She was saying, okay, yeah, with everything looking so good, we can begin to start coming off of it.
Mm.
And she even said when she looked at my results, she was like, if I didn't know your history, I would look at it and say, everything is fine. You're not hyper or hypo, is normal. So I also should mention that my dosage was already very low. So there was no need to lower it and then start coming off of it. So we started with me doing it every other day. I would take this medication every morning. So we did it every other day to see how I felt. And if I was feeling okay with that, then okay, great, keep going. And if not, then to let her know if I was feeling any symptoms, then I would have to clearly go back to every day. But I didn't feel anything. I was feeling okay. And then when it ended, I just came off of it. And ever since, I haven't taken it and I still feel great. So she's always checking in with me, are you like doing good? Because it is something serious if you
Yeah.
don't take care of it. But I've been feeling fine. And I'm actually going to get a checkup in the next 2 months just to get, be certain that everything is still looking good. But we both think that everything is going to be fine. And yeah, it's funny because I've been doing labs all my life. Like every 6 months, I have to get everything checked because of the thyroid. And with that, you see everything else, your lipid panels and all that stuff. And on carnivore, everything was so much better. Like my liver markers, my cholesterol markers, even though they were like high. And I will say I have a high cholesterol, and I think everyone needs a high cholesterol.
Mhm.
So everything was good. Like the LDL was extremely low, triglycerides is low, and it's all these other factors that you guys also mentioned. The CRP, I'm going to say this wrong, the fibrogenin antigen, something like that. They can get checked as well. And I get all this stuff checked and everything's great. So it's pretty cool. And actually, I do want to add, going back to with the thyroid and the cholesterol, everyone is trying to lower their cholesterol. And then same thing, so many people are getting organs taken out or so dependent on medication. And it's like, are we saying that God is wrong? Are we saying that God messed up when he made us, when he put cholesterol in our body, when he put a thyroid gland in our body? Like, did he go wrong there? Because we're taking it out. We're trying to lower it, Then it's like, I don't think he is wrong. We need it, right? We need all this stuff. So we shouldn't be trying to lower cholesterol. We shouldn't be trying to take organs out. We should be trying to fix the root cause, which is the diet.
Yeah.
So yeah, but yeah, all of that was really good because it changed my life. And it
Mhm.
was in a moment where I was growing like spiritually, emotionally, mentally when I started carnivore and then physically. So it was just a whole like year of healing and elevating.
Yeah.
That's
That's really
really
good.
good. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. And it's wonderful to hear that you did so well. And so you had full blown Hashimoto's, it sounds like. So you had the raised antibodies as well. Is that right?
No Hashimoto's, just hypothyroidism.
Okay. So you
Just
didn't have
hypothyroidism.
okay, so you just
My
tracked
mom,
your
my mom,
yeah.
my mom has Hashimoto's.
Yeah.
And because she has Hashimoto's, she would always check with me
Okay.
just to make sure if it like passed down because they say genetics
Yeah.
and all of this stuff.
So
So that's why I kept checking at early age.
mm,
And go ahead.
well, I was just gonna say, so you never had positive antibodies like TPO antibodies or anything like that?
So wait, does that mean I don't know the whole specifics of it, but I
Yeah.
know I was never told with
Yeah.
I do get my TPO checked and everything, but it's
Mhm.
been normal. Well, now the last one
No.
to the blood results.
Yeah.
But I've never been told that I had Hashimoto's. It was just hypothyroidism.
If you have antibodies, those are specifically the Hashimoto's antibodies. And so if
Mhm,
you ever had antibodies towards yourself, so the autoantibodies, that's the definition of an autoimmune issue. And so it
mhm,
sounds like if you had been positive for those antibodies, for the Hashimoto's antibodies, which TPO is one of them, then
Hmm.
uh, then yes, you would have had that issue, Hashimoto. So it's funny
Right.
sometimes, yeah, people just don't want to give the diagnosis, or maybe they assume someone else has given the diagnosis. But I've seen that with my patients as well. They've had, their thyroid antibodies, their Hashimoto's antibodies are, you know, hundreds of times too high.
All over the plate. Oh,
Yeah.
that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, like back in 2015. And I was like, okay, so you've had Hashimoto's for a while now. They're like, what? I've never been told that. I was like, okay,
Yeah.
so that's what these are. And someone checked those for a reason. They never told you that, what this meant. They're like, nope, they never said I had anything like that. I was like, okay, well, sorry to be the
So
bearer of
many
bad news.
people.
Yeah.
Right. And when I say that I found out with hypo, it's not autoimmune, but you usually don't know that at such a young age. People they get told that when they're like older. And
Yeah.
it's like you should be checking that way earlier because of signs that a lot of people have, but it's never checked. It's kind of like when you're diabetic. They'll be like, okay, you're fine, you're fine. Let's not check that HA1C. And then when you're dying, they're like, oh my goodness, let's check the HA1C. They're like, oh, you're diabetic. Who knew? Instead of trying to prevent it before, no, now that you're dying, let's try to fix the problem.
Yeah, it is a bit late, isn't it? When somebody starts having deranged HbA1c and deranged fasting blood sugar, they've likely had elevated insulin levels for 10 to 15 years. And that's been causing
That's
a
a
lot
long
of
time.
yeah, and that's been causing a lot of problems. That elevated insulin causes, just plays merry hell with your system, your metabolism, and all your other most of your other hormones. And so you're meeting a demand, so your body's compensating for hyperglycemia, but it's taking more and more insulin to do it and to get the job done. And eventually you just sort of wear yourself out and burn yourself out. And then you can't compensate for hyperglycemia. And then we start calling, oh, now you're pre-diabetic. Now you were pre-diabetic 15 years ago. Now you've got a problem. And so, and the main way to do that is not give more insulin, which is now compounding the problem because now you're raising the insulin even higher, um, and causing more problems. You're getting the blood sugar under control, and that's good, because high blood sugar is directly damaging to your body. But like you say, it's not addressing the root cause. It's a band aid.
Mhm.
It's a bad band aid because the insulin itself causes its own problems. And the same thing with the Hashimoto's. That's a very underdiagnosed condition. I've seen so many people with Hashimoto's. So many people that just come in, they just have, a bit of problems with weight gain, can't really, shift their weight, and they are just a little low energy, just feeling off. You'd be surprised how many of those people end up having, markedly elevated Hashimoto's antibodies, and their thyroid function is a little skewed, but it's nothing that like a normal doctor would trigger them to say like it's within the normal, quote unquote, normal range for the reference range
Yeah.
for the labs, but those are wildly off because most people are sick and metabolically unhealthy. So those reference ranges are looking at people who are sick and metabolically unhealthy. And so we look at other ones. They say, okay, actually, for our, you're in their range, but you're outside of our range. And why is that? You check their antibodies and 600 or something like that. It's like, okay, so that's what this is. And you catch that at a time when it's just the insulin's up, the fasting insulin's up, but you're not
Really?
pre-diabetic yet. And so you actually have, you can salvage more when you do that. You catch things early, and they don't have to suffer for 15 years before they get a diagnosis when they're just absolutely, destroyed. And say, oh, yeah, you have Hashimoto's. Now we can treat you. Well, what about 15 years ago when they started feeling like crap and came to you and you were like, nope, nope, everything's within the right range. So get out.
That's true. One thing that you do mention, I do think that's true. And the labs, it's more statistics, and it's not like something that you should 100% look at for accuracy of what's going on. It's also about what you feel mostly.
Mm.
But I do think it's a good, like, just a little check and let's see where you are. But I agree with that, You don't let anyone tell you how you feel. You know how you feel. If you're not okay, you're not okay.
Yeah, exactly. And and that's the most important thing. It's something that's drilled into people. As their doctors coming up, is that you treat patients, you don't treat lab tests. Okay, like, oh, the lab test is normal, but they're sick. Okay, so figure out what the hell's
Mhm.
going on. Or their lab, you have an aberrant blood test, but they don't have any symptoms, they don't have any problems. Like, okay, you just sort of put an asterisk by that. You recheck it, see how they're doing, keep an eye on them, but you don't just throw medications at them
Yes.
because
Uh-huh.
something's a little bit off. Certain things, like may differ from that, but that's a good rule of thumb. And so even if someone's thyroid maybe is a bit off, but I was like, yeah, I feel great. Maybe it's just they don't realize they could feel a lot better. You put them on a small dose of something, you go, oh my God, I had no idea. Like, this is a different sort of experience. But it's
It
important to treat the patient particularly.
it's funny because an example would be like a vitamin D3. You see the ranges and it's like the lowest I think is 25. And some doctors, a patient could come in and it's like 30 and they'll be like, oh, you're fine. But the patient's like, I'm depressed, like I'm not okay. And it's at 30, probably almost like as low as it can be, but they're like, it's fine. And then they come back and it's like, oh, now it's 24. Oh my goodness, it's
Yeah.
24. We need to do something.
Yeah. That's good. Or 25. Yeah, it's fine. 24. Oh my God, no.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And most people are vitamin D deficient. And so the
Hmm.
range is going to be way lower as well. And so, yeah, no, that's a very good point. I see this a lot. I saw this with my sister growing up. She would have low iron levels and she'd feel rotten. And you could see she would get an iron transfusion or something, and her levels would be up here, and then they just start sinking down and sinking down and sinking down. And then when it hit a certain level, she'd start feeling rotten. But her doctor wouldn't give her a transfusion until it sort of went half of where it was when she felt rotten. And then it was oh, now we can give it to you. Now you have a deficiency. Buddy, there was a deficiency way back there. And so,
Right.
that always bugged me. And so, I remember that,
Yeah.
and just saying, hey, like, I don't want people to have to suffer like that.
Yeah, it bothers me a lot too. And I'm like, I'm not a doctor, but goodness gracious, when you see
Listen,
some of these things.
it's a bit of common sense, isn't it? And
Mm.
when you recognize, and this was taught to me in medical school, so this was not lost on me. And I thought it was stupid then too, that the reference ranges are the average for that lab. It is not what, hey, we've calculated and studied this, and this range is the perfect range for vitamin D or B12 or thiamine. It's just like, yeah, what does everybody in this part of the town? What are you? Yeah, what's your normal? What's your ranges? Okay, everyone's sick and overweight and
Yeah,
feeling
yeah.
miserable. That's not what you want to test yourself against. You're like, oh yeah, you're perfectly in that range of people who are sick and unhealthy and feel like crap. Great, that's me. I feel like crap. You know, and so you need to do better than that. I was going to say too, I totally agree with you about how you're saying that, were we designed wrong? Was this stupid? Would God messed up? You don't need that thyroid, your body's just going to break down. You don't need cholesterol, all that sort of stuff. Um, all life on earth is battle hardened. We, the hard rule about biology is that of adaptation and survival. You're adapting to your environment or you die. And plenty of people have died because they couldn't deal with with different sort of areas and environments and issues that came along, and other ones survived, and they were the ones who were able to survive. And some just got completely wiped out because something happened. And about something like 97% of all animal species that have ever existed are now extinct. They're the ones who weren't able to make it. So anything that's alive now, anything, animal, vegetable, or you know any other form of life, they are extremely well adapted. Their bodies are finely tuned machines, and they are not going to just have all these just springs and wires, leaking out and popping out and just having, it's like, oh, you have all this cholesterol. Oh, no, no, that's all crap. All this organ. Yeah, just take that out. That doesn't work.
Right.
That doesn't
Mhm.
work. And as a species, that wouldn't work genetically. So if our genetic design were so flawed, so poor that we were just falling apart all over the place, we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be alive. We wouldn't be having this conversation. Our species would not be fit to survive and it would die, especially during the ice ages. Are you kidding me? Do you know how hard it is to live through an ice age? If you're just that sick and getting chronic diseases, if it were true, the Simon Hills of the world were right to say that, meat causes disease and that, oh, yes, we've been eating meat for 2 million years, but that doesn't mean it's good for us. Yes, it does, Simon. Yes, it damn well does. And if you're in an ice age and you're eating meat and it's bad for you and you're getting sick and you're getting all the chronic diseases that he attributes to eating meat, you're not making it through the ice age. You don't eke your way through an ice age. You either thrive or you go extinct. That's it. You thrive or you perish. And we not only thrived, we became the most dominant species that has ever lived during the ice ages. So, we had to be really fit, really healthy, really robust. You can't do that if you're unhealthy and chronically sick and getting gout and all these sorts of things. It just doesn't happen.
And our bodies are so perfect that even when we're throwing trash in it, it still is up and going. They make our body like, oh, it's so incompetent, but it's so competent. Like but to each
Yeah.
his own.
It is amazing. We can it is a testimony. We're designed to eat meat. That's what we do best on. That's what we've been eating for millions of years. And yet we're eating all this plant garbage, high octane, poison and this processed foods and these industrial solvents and lubricants that didn't even exist 100 years ago. Some of
Back
the stuff didn't
then,
exist
yeah.
last year. And yet we're putting this stuff into our body and our bodies, you know, detoxifying and doing all this amazing things to sort of clear this stuff out as much as possible so that we can live. And we can live.
Mhm,
And it's pretty
mhm.
amazing, but it doesn't mean it doesn't come without a cost. And
Right.
so, that's the natural state of humanity, the natural state of all life is that of health. If the natural state of any species was unhealth, they get eradicated. They'd all die out. You can't live like that. If you're not able to beat out other species, you're dead. And so if you're just a really sickly, terrible example of life, you're not going to make it. You're going to get beat out. You're going to get eaten. You're going to go the way of the dodo. It's just not going to happen. We've dealt with some crazy trials and tribulations, and we're here. We're standing on top of the world, and now we're starting to be our own undoing. No other, animal or life on earth was able to best us, and now we're besting ourselves. We're making ourselves sicker and weaker, and that that's
Excuse
the only
me.
thing. Maybe that's what I forget who said it, but they said that humans are the only animals smart enough to make our own food, and the only ones dumb enough to eat it. That's true.
Um, I'm gonna say we're just fed. It's an agenda based thing
Mm.
or profit driven thing because
Yeah.
they're feeding us to make us sick, dumb, and weak so we can be controlled and people buy into it.
Yeah, and then sell us the Band-Aids that sort of keep us together, like all the diabetes medication and, the immune
they're
modulators and things like that,
they're telling
issues.
they're telling you to lower your cholesterol. They're putting you on low cholesterol diet so you have hormonal imbalance, and then they're going to sell you hormones to inject
Mhm.
in yourself in later years. That's
Yeah. Yeah, and your brain is made out of cholesterol largely. It's made out of fats largely, and you're not getting that. Our brains aren't developing properly. They're not being maintained properly. They're not aging properly. So people are getting dementia. They're getting Alzheimer's. They're getting all these neurodevelopmental problems and issues as well. and they're just selling us more drugs and nonsense
Yeah.
and
It's
medical facilities to treat that.
it's crazy because a lot of people are putting in like the chips for like hormone treatment and then they take it out because they find out that it's absolute trash and then they're getting worse. It's like fix your diet. Go eat a steak.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So you got in the Daily Mail recently as well, is that right? And so how
The Daily Mail and New
yeah.
York Post, yeah.
Yeah, oh, and the New York Post too. Oh, that's awesome.
Mhm.
Yeah. So how did that happen? How did they find out about you?
On TikTok, I started making videos
Mhm.
about my diet, and then I talked about my cholesterol too, and how my symptoms went away on carnivore, and how I was plant based, and did all this and that. And a journalist reached out from the UK wanting to talk, and I was like, okay. I was kind of like indecisive at first, but I was like, hey, let's do it. And I
Mhm.
did it, and then, sorry, excuse me.
Alright.
It got sent out, and then they picked the Daily Mail and New York Post picked it up, and then it just spread. And I was like, oh my goodness, I didn't know this was going to happen.
Nice. So
Yeah.
so how was that? How was that conversation? What'd you guys talk about there?
What I ate on a daily basis, why I went from like, what was that switch from vegan to carnivore? How did that happen? How I learned about it and all of that. It was really my day to day, really.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Has
I'm just
anything
happy that I was happy
yeah.
that even like I was able to share that so people know that there is something else that they're not being told. And people are often afraid to accept something different than what they believe in because they don't want to be wrong.
Mhm.
And it's like the more we put out these things, it's like, wait, what's going on? There is this opportunity. It's not just one type of lifestyle that you need to follow. You can't be healthy and feel good and be normal.
Yeah. Yeah. And what's great that this is starting to get more mainstream attention as well, even if it's for shock
It's
value
great.
or something, you know. But
Hmm.
no, but that's really good. And then, so you're in law school now, is that right?
Yeah, I told them that I was in the process of going to law school. I
Uh-huh.
graduated recently from college, and now I actually have my LSAT this Thursday. So
Oh, hey,
fingers crossed that
there you
yeah,
go.
that everything goes well.
Oh, very
So in
good.
the process of going to law school, yeah.
Oh, good. Do you have any idea of what you want to do, like prosecute big food companies and things like that?
I thought about it.
Yeah.
It's funny because I've like I think I'm in the wrong profession because I've always had a passion for like nutrition and wellness. And I first started wanting to do medicine, but I was like, no, that's gonna take forever. And
Mm,
then I kind of just went to different things and then I ended up with law. Here I am going and trying to get into law school.
mm.
But I have some ideas. I don't know though, because I think there's a lot in the area. So once I start studying and seeing what's kind of more of my fit, I will decide then.
Mhm. It makes sense.
Yeah.
Obviously, you don't know what you're gonna do. I've sort of seen a lot of things that really bothered me to the extent that I was sort of thinking, well, maybe I just want to go back to law school and just start, you know, taking these all these people to, the Supreme Court and, attacking, all these sorts of things. It's
It's
just like,
it's always good
yeah.
to have a law degree for that.
Yeah. Well, it just bothers me that people are getting away with this and that they're profiting, they're
Mhm.
knowingly profiting off of other people's suffering. That really bothers me. And they're, and people like Callie Means has been, great because he's, been like a whistleblower, showing that the food companies know that this processed plant garbage causes disease, causes insulin resistance, causes hormonal dysfunction and metabolic dysregulation, and they're happy about it because they're heavily invested in pharmaceutical companies that then sell the band-aids for this and say, oh, you have this problem, well, good thing I just got this pill right here, wouldn't you know. And so he he pointed out, he said, look, I know that these guys know that this is harming people, I know that they know that this makes people sick, and they're profiting off it, and they're selling pharmaceuticals on the back end. I know that they know this because I've been in the boardroom meetings with them while they spoke about it. This is what's
That's
happening.
insane.
This is not a conjecture. This is not a baseless
Mhm.
accusation. It's like the tobacco companies for 30 years, they denied that tobacco was a problem, that tobacco was addictive or caused any sort of deleterious health effects, such as emphysema or cancer. And but our studies show that it's absolutely great for you and gives you beautiful skin and makes you grow a third arm. It's awesome. It's like superhero juice. And then we got their memo showing that they damn well knew that this stuff harmed people, and that they were putting out bullshit studies to make it appear as if it was the other way around, and that's what they do. That's what all these industries do. You have a product, it's crap, and people say like, hey, these are a problem, and it's like, and they just flood the journals with all these papers. So, look at this. We got 30 studies saying it's good. We got 30 studies saying it's bad. Well, I guess we need more studies. Well, that works for them because it you know kicks the ball to touch, and it's just like, okay, we're just delaying things. But if while you're delaying things, your product is still on the market, and so they just keep doing that. And when the tobacco industry got called out and they got their internal memos shown, and they showed that they were perjuring themselves before Congress for 30 years, and that they were defrauding people and they were knowingly harming people, they got essentially a slap on the wrist. Some they might not think so. It was like a $400 billion fine. How many trillions of dollars did they make during that time of
Mhm.
profit, right? And also, how is that not a criminal act? You are knowingly causing harm. You know that your product causes damage, disease, emphysema, death, cancer, these sorts of things. Or at least you have a very good idea, like, yeah, our research shows that this is much more likely to cause cancer, emphysema, and other sorts of health problems. And you know that that's happening, and you are lying about it, and you're keeping this out on the market in order to hurt people. How is that not a criminal offense? I don't understand.
Uh,
And so, the same with the sugar companies. We have the sugar memos now, knowing that they defrauded and lied to people and put out opposition research, even though they knew that sugar was strongly associated with heart disease. And that's why they put it out. They said, well, we got to cover this up. We got to
yes.
make a scapegoat, which is cholesterol. And now we know that. So why aren't these people facing criminal trials? I guess they're just dead now, so we can't put them on trial and hopefully kill them. But the sugar companies now are still pushing this crap out there.
Mhm.
So what the hell? Why is this still available? Why isn't this having the same warnings that tobacco has? Why isn't this age restricted? We know this is a drug. We know this is addictive. We know this is damaging. We know this causes harm. Why is this freely given out to children and babies? Why is this put in infant formula? That's
Yeah.
something that someone needs to answer for, in my opinion.
All those ingredients. It reminds me of the seed oils. And you see like all these medication too. It's funny, that reminded me. You see some commercials, it's like, oh, do you feel this? Take this medication. It might kill you, but
Yeah.
consult with your doctor to see if you need it. It's like, oh, why? What?
Yeah. Like, no thanks. Yeah. And
Right. I
yeah.
want to consider it. There's
Yeah.
like all these risks. I could lose like all my organs and die, but it's fine if I consult with my doctor.
Yeah. But it'll clear up your acne. So, you
Right.
know, it's a wash.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Same thing like with birth control. It's so big and it's crazy.
Yeah. I think
It
there's,
destroys the
yeah.
body.
Yeah. I think that's something
That
that's,
reminded me of that.
yeah. No, well, I agree. There's been a lot of studies coming out showing the long-term effects and ramifications medically
Mhm.
and psychologically, of long-term use of birth control pills. There was one, that I didn't read myself, but I saw people talking about, different psychologists talking about how birth control pills actually change the psychology of women, and how they interact with, people they want to date, and they end up looking for basically more sort of high risk, um, low rent sort of boyfriends that aren't marriage material. They're looking for like flings. That's sort of what they're keyed off on, is looking for flings, as opposed to looking at who is a good partner for me to spend the rest of my life with and raise kids with. It sort of alters their psychology and their approach to dating, which is pretty crazy.
I think the point of birth control, right? Because, like, first of all, we shouldn't even be on it in the first place. That shouldn't even be a consideration, but it's out in this world
Mm.
like everything else. How did you start in medical school and got into carnivore? What was the switch for you?
Well, I did carnivore for 5 years in my early 20s. And so I was actually doing
Mhm.
carnivore before I went to medical school. I was interested in medicine, always wanted to be a doctor. So I was, pre-med, taking the biology and, botany classes because they, were interesting, and cancer biology. And that's when I learned about, how toxic plants were and how they have all these defense chemicals and how they're actually quite carcinogenic and have a lot of natural carcinogens in them. How Brussels sprouts at the time when I was taking cancer biology, my professor told us that they had 136 identified carcinogens just in Brussels sprouts, over 100 in mushrooms, and all the other vegetables and fruits and things like that that we would eat as a main staple of our diet. They all had dozens, if not over 100 carcinogens in them. And so he was the one who sort of said to us, because we were shocked, we just were in disbelief, like, how is this possible? Um, he must be joking. He wasn't. And I was just looking for like a TA. I was looking around, who's his boss, I was looking for someone who's like trying to, trying not to smile, trying not to laugh. No one was. Everyone was doing the same as me. Like, what the hell is he talking? What's going on? And I wish I could find someone who was in this class with me, because everyone was just looking around wildly, like, this is crazy. What's going on right now? And he just sort of looked at us when we settled down, and he just said, "I don't eat salad. I don't eat vegetables. I don't let my kids eat vegetables. Plants are trying to kill you." I was like, okay, screw plants. And so I just stopped. And I stopped that day, and you went to grocery store. I'm like, what the hell do I eat? Everything's a plant. Everything has plants in it.
Yeah.
And I just walked. I was really in a daze. My eyes were just wide. I'm like, hell is going on? I just completely just, rocked my world. And like, and I was just like, okay, what the hell? I was like, came across some eggs. I was like, okay, eggs. Eggs don't come from plants. I'll get some eggs. I came by the meat aisle. I was like, okay, meat. Meat doesn't come from egg. Grabbed a big thing of meat. Okay, I'll just eat eggs and meat. And I'd have milk sometimes, but, not all that much. My whole thing was just, I'm not eating plants. Plants are toxic. Plants have all these chemicals in it. I'm not going to eat plants. And so I did that
Wow.
for 5 years. I took some time off between undergrad and grad school, med school. So I was playing rugby at sort of, you know, professional levels, highest levels in North America, and then over in England as well. And so I took some time off, and half of that was on carnivore, just eating no plants at all. And then I sort of slipped off of that, and I started sort of incorporating things back in my diet again, not realizing how big of an impact it had on my health. I mean, during that time when I was only eating meat, I never felt better. I couldn't run out of energy. I couldn't get tired. I was just pushing myself harder and harder and harder. And I was like, I cannot wear myself out. This is crazy. And especially when I got into really good shape, because eventually you're going to blow yourself out. But eventually I got to a point that I could not wear myself out. It didn't matter how much sprinting I was doing, no matter how much running I was doing. I mean, I was sprinting equivalents of marathons, just, sprinting, do like sprint a mile and then run really hard for a mile, sprint a mile, run really hard for a mile. I was just doing that. I just kept doing that and doing that and doing that. And then I just get bored and be like, okay, I think that's good. I just want to go do something else now. Running for the sake of running always bored me to tears, which is why I never like entered a marathon at the time. I was like, I could just sprint a marathon and just set a record on my first marathon. I should do that, just to say that I did. But just the thought of just running 26 miles straight, it just bored me to tears. If
Bored here.
oh God, if I've got to, if I'm running more than, like 40 meters at a time, I'd either better be hitting the living hell out of somebody who's running with the ball, or like scoring the ball, like scoring a try. If I have to run, 100 meters, that had better be a coast to coast, score, that I sort of picked the ball in our end zone and then broken through and scored on the other side. That really bothers me if I have to run that far and not smash somebody, like there should be a purpose behind that besides just running. But I would do it, sometimes just to try to wear myself out. I couldn't do it. And so then after that, I went to medical school. I sort of dropped off of it. But I was always, always big into meat, and always ate clean, never ate processed food ever. That's one of the things that the vegans say is that, well, when people go carnivore, they feel better because they go from like a processed garbage diet. Well, you went from a clean vegan diet. So that's not
Right.
I went from a very clean omnivorous diet. I was eating not even all that much fruit. I wouldn't have sweets ever. And but vegetables, salads, and lean meats. I was eating what is supposedly a very optimal, quote unquote, balanced diet. And it was night and day difference when I just dropped the greens and the rest of it, and certainly bread and everything like that. And so it was after medical school. So I had been a doctor for a while. I just come back from doing humanitarian work in Bangladesh, and I, just sort of came across information. It's like, no, humans actually are carnivores. That's just the kind of animal that we are. And that's what I was doing for 5 years. That I've never felt better in my entire life. And I could never figure out how to get back there, how to get back to feeling just like a superhero all the time. And I all of a sudden realized like that was it. I was eating as a carnivore, I was living as a carnivore. That's the kind of animal that we are. That makes sense. Screw it. I knew plants were trying to kill me, get rid of these stupid things, and I dumped them out. And then 2 weeks later, I was a lot leaner, lost a ton of weight, and just felt like $1,000,000. And I just looked back and realized that,
Sorry.
oh, that's okay. You okay?
Yes, I'm so sorry.
No, that's okay. Yeah. And
Yeah.
so, I just realized that it was, that I'd been robbed from feeling amazing my whole life. And I started looking at things from a medical perspective, and things started making a lot more sense. All these chronic diseases that we're treating, all these problems that we're having, just feeling unwell, feeling unhealthy, putting on weight, deranging our hormones. We are carnivores as a species, and yet we're not living as such. And we're eating things that we're not biologically designed to eat, and we're not supposed to eat. And that's going to cause harm. It causes harm to all animals that do that. All animals that eat outside of their prescribed biological diet, unless they're eating meat, if they're eating other plants that they're not designed to eat, they get very sick. Herbivores can eat meat. That's not a problem. For a while we were, grinding up, the excess sort of bits of cow and putting that in cow feed, you know, and I think they probably stopped doing that for a while, but the whole mad cow thing in England, they,
Oh, yes.
they thought that that was because they were grinding up, the brains and nervous tissue of cows and feeding it back to themselves. Um, but actually, there was a researcher that was showing that there was actually this medication that I forget what it was called, but it was basically for this some little weevil sort of thing that would like bore into the cow's skin, and they'd make these big scars, these big like blistery scars, and that would sort of ruin the hide. And so the British government said, "Oh, okay, you have to give these shots with a certain medication or something like that, or maybe it was a wash or something." Um, and that right after that was when mad cow started coming out. And there was a researcher, I think he had a ranch up in Canada, and he had all these cows, and he had a special dispensation to not give the cows this stuff. Everyone was required to give the cows this horrible stuff. And he had an exemption because he was running an experiment on this, and his cows could not get mad cow disease. He actually fed them the nervous tissue of cows with confirmed mad cow, and they couldn't get it. And that's he was doing that experiment for years. Unfortunately, the veterinarian that was helping him um, had some sort of strange auto accident and passed away, unfortunately. Then the member of parliament in the UK who was helping him with this had an accident and died, unfortunately. And then several months later, he died mysteriously as well. So
Mysteriously.
who knows? But um, but yeah, a lot of these things, aren't really what we're being told. And so yeah, but the cows were actually being fed other cows. They did just fine. And mad cow aside, they were being fed cow parts for a long time, which is a bit ghoulish, feeding them their,
Oh,
cannibalizing, forced cannibalism sort of thing. But you see other herbivores eat small animals all the time when they have access to it. I've seen elk eat rabbits and little rabbits and goslings and little chicks and things like that, little birds and stuff like that. They just crunch them right up. It's sort of jarring the first time you see that, but there's plenty of examples and videos on the internet that people can see as well. They do just fine with that because that's perfect nutrition. But if they eat the plants that they aren't designed to eat, they'll get very sick or die. Same thing goes for us. And people aren't realizing
mhm.
that. But, looking at that from a medical perspective, it makes so much sense, and then when you start treating people with that and you just put them on a proper human diet, as Dr. Berry would say, but a biologically appropriate diet, what we are designed to eat, most of these problems go away, and they go away quite fast. I mean, like you notice, I mean, that's an amazing testimony. You had a lot of problems, a lot of very serious ailments. You're a young lady. Your life, is going to be that's very difficult to deal with all those problems all the time. You got enough on your plate. You're going to college. You're doing trying to think about where you want to go for grad school and what you want to do, and dealing with all these medical issues is can be derailing. It can stop people from pursuing their dreams because they're so sick and tired all the time, and their brain doesn't
Right.
function properly, and their body doesn't function properly. And what do you know? You stop eating certain things, all those problems go away. It's almost as if they're related.
The mental clarity and all energy, the blood brain barrier, right? The gut and our second brain.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, it's so interconnected. I mean, you're putting toxins in your body and you're getting toxic effects. It's pretty straightforward when you think about it. Yeah.
It's funny. I just remembered. I mention this too all the time. A lot of, I think it's microbes, like the parasites that people aren't aware of. And
Mhm.
all of that has to do with like, we're feeding, kind of like feeding cancer cells and destroying the thyroid or your kidneys, all the carbs, the sugars, they're proliferating from that,
Mhm.
or the plant sugars. And
Yeah.
it's just destroying us, and people don't know it. And yeah,
Yeah.
it needs
Well,
to be made
people
aware.
don't realize it. Yeah. Well, because they're being sold a line that veganism is the best way to go. That's why you did it, is because you heard so many people
Yes.
saying this is the way to go. And then you did it and went, my God, that is not the way to go.
And it's so depressing because you're eating food that doesn't even taste good. And then you start
Yeah.
eating
Yeah.
the good food, and it's like, wow, this is so good.
Yeah, like, this is miserable, and it makes me feel miserable, and,
All
I
of a
here we
sudden,
go.
GABA is being produced and you're happy
Mhm.
serotonin.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's funny. So, have you noticed any issues with, like, your friends or your social circles? Or, I mean, there's a lot of concerns that people have is that, "Well, I don't wanna be a social pariah. I wanna be out, and then, I don't wanna isolate myself and not be able to go out or hang out with friends." Do you find, that was an issue?
Not at all. Not at all. Because as carnivore, even in the beginning, I try to do like eat at home, make sure I'm good. So when I'm outside, I'm not tempted by French fries or something like this and that. And if I do go out, it's always like, let me get, a small appetizer that's meat based. So it's not like I like, oh my gosh, you're not going to eat. Why are you not going to eat? To not make it
Mhm,
too awkward. But even friends and family, everyone at first, is concerned because the saturated fats and meat, red meat. But after telling them everything, most of them are like, okay, we'll let you do you. You look
mhm,
fine. So you
mhm,
must be doing something right.
mhm.
And they still give me like these looks like, I don't know if I can do that. I don't know if you're really right, but okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. You do get that. I still get some friends who mostly do carnivore, and they're like, "Ah, is it really? Is it really? Are vegetables really bad for you?" I'm like, "Eat them if you want." I know I'm not going to though.
Right, yeah. It's like, "Don't judge me, I won't judge you."
Yeah, that's it. Do what you want. I'm just giving you the information. You can do with it whatever you like. I mean, I really don't care if people
Exactly.
want to do vegan, vegetarian, all these sorts of things. Eat some salad, drink soda and vodka for all I care. I don't care. I just don't want people doing that because they think like you did. They got suckered into thinking this is like the healthiest thing for them to eat. That they should eat this because it's good for them to eat it. It's not good for you to eat. You don't need it. It's not necessary. It's not required. It's not beneficial. If you want to do it, fine. But that's like drinking alcohol or smoking cigarettes. It's not good for you. And people used to say it was because they were selling it to you.
Uh-huh.
And, now we know better, but it's just like smoke. If you want to smoke, I don't care. But, that's your choice. And if you want to do that, that's fine. But, don't go around telling people that they should smoke because smoking is important. And, we need to smoke for our health. I mean, that's obviously ridiculous.
It's a lot of people are like, "Oh, you need healthy fats." What are healthy fats? Vegetable oils. You don't need that fat, you need vegetable oils.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's funny too because vegetable oils didn't exist, up until very recently as well. So, how can something be necessary and required that didn't even exist for the vast majority of human existence? That doesn't make any sense. This is something that's required for life, required for optimal health. Where was it?
You and you're being sold on this organic, pure, healthy thing, but then you get something it's like, "Oh, it's gluten-free, it's GMO-free, like non-GMO." And you're like, "Okay, I'm doing something right." And then you look at the ingredients and it's like 30 different things and they're adding like colors in there.
Hmm.
Why is there color in my food?
Yeah.
And when you look at it, it's like, wait, this actually isn't organic. Because if it was organic, it would be one ingredient only, like meat. Meat is
Yeah.
meat.
Yeah. It shouldn't even have an ingredients list. It shouldn't need one.
Right.
It's just a carrot,
Exactly.
like just whatever. And
Yeah.
yeah, the color is a bit weird too. I've seen people that have had, their kids have just only eaten meat their whole life, and all of a sudden they're given, like cough syrup or some sort of liquid Tylenol, and all of a sudden they just start acting out and getting really upset and just
Wow.
not acting their normal way, being very very upset. And, they, mother was telling me this and we went to the doctor and said, "Hey, my kid really freaked out when they had this." It's like, yeah, that red dye that they use, that's really common. That like just trips kids out.
Yeah.
Like, why the hell would you put that in there then? Why would you let me give that to my child? Like obviously that's some weird ass chemical that's not good for them. Oh, it just has some flavor. It just doesn't have carbs. Oh, everything's just about burning things, because we're a steam locomotive. So everything just gets burned up and combusted. No, we're chemical factories. You put random chemicals in your body, you're gonna get random effects. And so
Uh-huh.
it's important to not do that. That's why I just as a baseline don't want to put anything into my body that didn't exist 50,000 years ago during the ice ages, and we weren't eating as a staple of our diet that time as well. So meat counts. Oh, well, cows weren't there. Shut up. Their ancestors were there. We just eat meat. You want to go eat moose, go eat moose, go eat some bison or something like that. That was definitely around. And and try not to get anything else in there. I think there's something like a million different chemicals have been patented since the 1970s. What in goodness gracious is that doing to us? These are all these chemicals that have never existed in nature, and or a lot of them haven't existed in nature. And we've come up with them, and we're putting them in our environment. We're putting them in our cleaning detergents and beauty products and soaps and
Yep.
shampoos
Mhm.
and medicines and now food, and that is getting into our body. There was I had a patient who had a very good doctor who told her never put anything on your skin that you wouldn't eat because in 20 minutes that's in your bloodstream. Yeah, anything you put on your skin in
Mhm.
20 minutes is in your bloodstream. They're like, huh, okay, yeah, I hadn't thought about that. That's something to think about.
I was talking to someone and they were saying they used to be an engineer for this chemical processing thing. And the same chemicals that they would have to wear masks and put gloves on and the suits to work with are products being put in your skincare. Same thing with the
Wow.
dyes. It's like they test like red 40. You put it on your skin, it starts giving you a rash, but then it's an M&Ms,
Yeah, yeah,
you know.
great call.
But it's so bad.
Yeah, no, that is really bad. And we have no idea what's getting in our food. We're just trusting people blindly, and we're putting
Mhm.
this in our body. That's something that you tell kids not to do. Like, don't take drugs because you don't know where these things come from. It's just a random pill from a random person. You don't know what's in there. They tell you it's one thing, but who knows what's in there. That's what we're doing with our food now. We're taking random things. It's just this laundry list of random chemicals, and sometimes they don't even tell you all their chemicals. They just send you a proprietary blend of you know seasonings and ingredients or things like
Uh-huh.
that. And it's just like, what the hell is in there? You know? And so we have no idea. And like you were saying, they can have all these sorts of undue consequences and reactions, and yet they're allowed and legal to be put in food. People just assume, well, they wouldn't be allowed to put it in there if it was bad for you. Like, you have way too much faith in humanity. You certainly have way too
Right.
much faith in our government systems and things like that.
Uh-huh.
First of all, they're mostly inept. Second of all, they're eminently corrupt and bought off. There's a corporate capture that bought and paid for these people. There's a revolving door. As soon as you leave, the licensing bureau, you get a cushy executive board, committee job, making, 7 figures a year, just hanging out, right? Because you're getting paid off for all the, the buddy work that you provided when
Uh-huh.
you were at the FDA or wherever. People have way too much faith. They're just not cynical enough. You haven't seen enough bad things in your life. If you're just that trusting, then that's beautiful. You've lived a blessed life.
That's funny.
Yeah. But yeah, I've seen way too much to think for a second that that we are protected and we can just blindly walk and just do whatever. Any product that's there, they wouldn't
Right.
they wouldn't let us eat it if it was sick. No, they'll be happy for you to eat it. Also, why would you want people to let you? Well, they wouldn't let us eat this. They wouldn't let us do that. No one should be letting you do anything, apart from, not hurting people, not harming other people. You get to live your own life. You get to make your own decisions, bad or otherwise. They let you drink alcohol, you know,
Yeah.
so they let you smoke cigarettes. Well, they wouldn't let us do it if it was harmful to us. Well, they don't really care.
That's what they want.
Yeah. And they're selling it to you. So, yeah, they're more than happy for you to do it.
Because then, yeah, they're profiting
Yeah, that's it.
one way or the other.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, on the front end or the back end, they get you coming and going. They make you sick, and then they treat you. Oh, you poor thing, let us help you. Here's this medicine. We made it just for you. And
And
that's the thing. There are a lot of medicines that are really beneficial, that are really
uh,
valuable, and have seen a lot of good done. And most doctors do want to help their patients and
yeah,
do want to do the right thing for their patients, and they are doing what they believe to be the right thing. That they were taught, this is how you treat these diseases. But it's inside the box thinking. They're thinking inside the parameters of everything that they were taught, and this is the universe. This is the known universe. There's nothing outside of this. So just stay in this little zone. You need to think for a second. Maybe those boundaries are arbitrary, and maybe those aren't actually where the universe stops. Maybe that's not where the end of knowledge is, and fantasy begins. Maybe those are wrong. And that's where you have to sort of think outside. Okay, well, what if, it's like in mathematics, you have geometry, which is Euclidean geometry, and triangles have angles that add up to 180. That's a postulate from from Euclid. And then you have non-Euclidean geometry. We sort of think outside of those boundaries. Well, okay, well, let's not assume that the angles line up to 180. What happens? Just as a thought experiment, what the hell happens? Well, a lot of really cool shit happens, and it actually better describes deep space and the different movements of things in deep space. It's just like, well, that was awesome. I'm glad we did that.
Look
We
at
sort
that.
of figured something out there. So it's very important to do is just to ask those questions and to
Yes.
challenge your own preconceived notions and all the things that you've been taught. um, More people are doing it. More doctors are doing it. One of your, you got 50% of your doctors thinking outside the box, which is great.
Right? Yeah.
You know, that's a lot more than it would have been 5 years ago. So at least there's movement and people thinking, hey, I haven't seen that before. I really like that. Didn't realize that would happen, but you know what? Let's go with it. You're doing better. I haven't seen that before. You know, I haven't seen people recover from these issues the way you have. So let's just keep running with this and see where that goes. That's the right thing to do, I think.
Yes, I agree. And I think that it is all about curiosity and open mindedness to ask questions, use your common sense, always get that second opinion. Don't just let anyone tell you ABC and then you go with that.
Yeah. No, I agree. And that's the thing too. If you don't have doctors telling you something, but you feel the only thing that a study can tell you is just it can give you an idea. That's what studies are for. They give you an impression, they give you some advice on and some information on what decision to make in your life.
Yeah.
And so you look at that and go like, okay, I'm gonna go with this. But it doesn't matter what the study says. If you do what the study says and you get the exact opposite results, study's crap. It doesn't matter. And so it's not worth your effort. It's not worth your time. And so if you go do something and say, well, this study says that you're gonna really hurt yourself if you eat a bunch of meat, you go eat a bunch of meat and you clear up all your problems, probably wasn't a very good study, you know. And so the most important thing is what real world results you get in your life. You have all these very smart people, maybe corrupt, maybe not, saying you should go plant based. And you go plant based and it destroys your life or it makes you worse
Yeah.
or at least doesn't make you better. And then you do the opposite and they say, oh my gosh, don't eat meat. Oh, it's so bad for you. Dr. Gardner from Stanford saying that it wouldn't be ethical to do a study with pitting vegans against carnivores because you just don't get necessary all the essential nutrients like fiber. Fiber is not an essential nutrient. Fiber is not even a nutrient. You get no nutrition from fiber. Fiber is sawdust. You don't get anything from sawdust. I'm sorry, Dr. Gardner. That's ridiculous. And so, and also, what about B12, buddy? I mean, you don't get B12 from a vegan diet, and you don't get all these other things.
Ane-
You're happy pushing a
Anemia,
vegan diet. Sorry?
especially on veganism, most of them are anemic.
Yeah.
Even at the beginning, I would always, my mom would always be like, wait, are you like, how is that? Because there was that question. And I get a lot of, oh, like you're a fake vegan, you were a fake vegan. Because if you were a real vegan, you would have continued your lifestyle. And I'm like, you wanted me to continue to be ill so I could live a lifestyle that fits your narrative. Like
Mm-mm.
I get all that type of stuff.
Well, the thing is that,
And that's
there's a difference between ideology and trying to do something for health. They're saying, well, you don't want to hurt animals and all that sort of stuff. Fine. You don't want to hurt animals. Fine. You are going to hurt more animals being vegan than
yeah.
eating meat, first of all. But if
Mhm.
want to hide behind, a couple, curtain and pretend that's not happening, that's your business. But the argument now is that it's not only, an ethical thing to do for animal rights. It's actually the best thing for you. It's actually really good for you. It's really healthy. And so they're trying to push that, with game changers, propaganda pieces and the what the health nonsense and that all stuff. And that's actually really pushing a lot of people to go vegan or plant-based. And so they're saying, okay, well, this is better for your health, right? Okay, fine. So people then try because of their health, not because they're ideologically driven, about, animal rights or anything like that, because they've been sold a false bill of goods that this is going to help their health. And so they try it for their health. It makes their health worse. And so they say, screw that. I did this for my health. You weren't a real vegan. Don't give a shit. I did this to get
Right.
healthy. This didn't make me healthy. Get effed. I don't care. You
Uh-huh.
know? And so, I mean, that's the thing. And I mean, it's just so stupid, And that's what you say to people. Oh, you weren't a real vegan. Couldn't care less. I don't want to be a real vegan. Real vegans are crazy. You know,
Literally.
I wanted to get healthy. This did not make me healthy. So I left because it's dumb.
Right. And then you see all who funds all this stuff.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, okay, just start adding two and two together.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, like
But
that
people are
recent.
so afraid to admit
Yeah. No, sorry.
that.
Go on. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, I was finished.
Yeah. It's like that recent Netflix thing that came out. It's like the twin study that Dr. Gardner,
What's it
again,
eat
our
in
good
her?
friend, the vegan activist, that doubles as a researcher at Stanford and poses as a researcher at Stanford. But really, he's a vegan activist, and he's just using his position to push his agenda. Um, they did that twin studies, and they said, "Oh, look at this, plant based is so great." Do you remember what it's called? It's on Netflix. It's like
It's you are what you eat, I
you are
think.
what you eat. Yeah, that's it. And so that was obviously pushed by Dr. Gardner, who's been an avowed vegan since the 1980s, and he said this isn't for health. This isn't to get better health. I just like the community. I like the vegan culture. I like the vegan people. Right? Okay.
Uh-huh.
All the way.
Right.
Um, and the major donors were people from Silicon Valley tycoons that had major interests or even owned all these plant-based food companies like Impossible Burger and all these sorts of things. It's crap. You're pushing
Uh-huh.
this. You're trying to sell a product, and they're not even being transparent about it. So same thing with game changers. Like I've said this before, but it bears repeating that James Cameron, who is the executive producer of that, did Avatar and Terminator and all. That's how they got, roped Arnold Schwarzenegger in, and had him sell out. I don't know how hard up for money he was that he had to do that. Or maybe he just doesn't mind lying for friends of his. But they pushed out this whole vegan narrative and agenda about all plant based is so much better. And the fact of the matter is that James Cameron owns like $140 million worth of a pea protein company, you know? And so, well, you don't want to eat meat, but you still eat protein. Oh, I just happen to have this product right here, you know? And so that's all it is. They're just pushing their own products. And, Arnold did this thing talking about, oh, if I was only vegan during a Mr. Olympia, I would have, won 20 times or whatever he said. It's like, dude, you were a carnivore when he was full on, like nearly full carnivore, because that's what all the bodybuilders were doing at the time. It was steak and eggs, steak and eggs, steak and eggs, steak and eggs. His body idol was a guy named Serge Nubret, who is yoked. People should look him up. Serge Nubret, Nubret. He was a French guy, and he was jacked. The guy would eat 6 pounds of horse meat a day. The guy was a monster. He was in that movie Pumping Iron with Arnold Schwarzenegger. We went up there and he won against Lou Ferrigno. And they made it all about him and Lou Ferrigno. And then at the end, they were like, oh, yeah. And they had a late contestant entry. The French actor, decided to enter late. And it was this massive, massive black guy who was just jacked and shredded. I was looking at him like, that guy's way more ripped than Arnold. Like that guy has a way better physique than Arnold does. And I was like, that doesn't make sense. Like, you're just some random French actor who just said, yeah, I'm just going to enter the Mr. Universe contest. That doesn't happen. Obviously, there's something more to this. Turns out that was Serge Nubret, who is a world famous bodybuilder. And they just downplayed him because, they wanted to make this about Arnold and Lou Ferrigno. And Serge was like in his late 30s at the time, and
Right.
Arnold was like 26, you know? And so that was actually who Arnold looked up to, when he was a teenager and wanted to look like and idolize. And he took his you know, training, program and nutrition, things like that from them as well. Just eating steak, meat, steak. They even say in the movies, just eat, I can't eat like huge amounts of meat at a time. So I've got to eat a steak now and some eggs and a bit of steak later and a bit of steak later and a bit of steak later. Not any time in there did he talk about eating all these plants or anything like that. So you say, oh, if I was vegan back then, I would have it would have been even better. And I was just like, sure it would. And he was like, and who the fuck are you to tell me what to eat? It's like, well, I'm a doctor who actually paid attention in school and knows what the hell I'm talking about. That's who I am, and maybe you should listen to that because you're not, and you don't know what you're talking about. And you're telling people to do the exact opposite of what gave you the results that you're famous
Right.
for and that is giving you the platform to talk trash right now. So, why is that?
It's funny because they try to promote it so much. It's like if it's so good, you didn't need to promote it so much.
That's true. Yeah. It should sell itself, you know?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, bad ideas need to be defended and protected. Good ideas just go and they just spread because they work and they're good. Meat is being attacked, is being vilified, is saying it's bad for you, it's sickening. They're putting taxes on it. They're trying to restrict it. They're trying to kill off all, half the cows in Ireland or something like that. They want, 100 cities signing on to meat free forever. No one eat meat ever. If it was such a good idea, you wouldn't need government coercion to bring it about. It would just happen on its own because people would see, wow, that's so much better. I'm so much healthier. People are doing so much better. That makes sense. But that's what they've been trying
Yeah.
for a long time. It didn't work because it's wrong. And now they're moving to coercion. And that's how you know that this is a really bad idea.
That's the government for you.
Yeah, it's really bad. Well, that's why we have to do things like this, and we have to make things a grassroots movement. We have to do it from the ground up. We have to get enough of a swell and a surge that people just say, "You're not taking this away from me," and you're not taking this
Mhm.
away from others. And other people realize that this is something that they have to have, and in order to be optimally healthy. And then you get people going in that understand these issues, politicians even that then understand these issues and understand that this is something that can help people and run on that and say, hey, we're being lied to, we're being coerced, we're not going to do this. I'm going to, protect your rights and protect your health as much as I can, and I think that'll happen. And I think that we're getting to the point that enough. I mean, you were in the New York Post. I mean, that's amazing. A lot of people read that. That's a major publication.
The
And
funny thing is
Mhm.
the funny thing is at the bottom of it, they are like, "It's not recommended to eat only meat, though, and this and that."
Yeah, we have to say that. It's not recommended by whom exactly. It's certainly recommended by Victoria Ferraz. It really helped her. So, but at least it's making the conversations. Even
Yes,
even to be like, this is crazy. I mean, I
to
think I made
question
it.
it.
Yeah, exactly. I was on 60 Minutes Australia, last year, and I knew it was going to be a bit of a slam piece, but I didn't really care. I just I just hoped that there would be enough positive in there that it would get some people talking about it, and at least make people go,
Right,
wait, hold on, what is he talking about?
right.
Then people sort of
Uh-huh.
maybe get interested and look into it, and then sure enough, the comments were riddled with people going like, well, that guy's crazy, just eating meat. But a lot of people were like, that guy only ate meat. He's like the healthiest looking guy in there. Like why are we saying that he's crazy? And he wasn't trying to sell anything. He's the one guy not selling anything,
Exactly.
and he looked healthier than everybody else. Like, what's this about? So, and then there's actually a ton of people that actually had seen that and tried carnivore, and they responded like, actually, that's like the best thing that has happened to my life. So it at least got the conversation going. And then the Daily Mail picked that up and basically didn't interview me. They just didn't talk to me. Just sort of saw that. I was like, there's this crazy ass doctor saying that you should only eat meat. And it was on 60 Minutes and all that sort of stuff.
Oh, they just
And
wrote about it like
oh
that.
yeah, they just wrote about it, and it was very funny. And yeah, didn't ask me for comments or anything like that. Not that I saw anyway. And they yeah, they were just sort of basically there to say like, this is nuts, this guy's crazy. But then after that, presumably they started saying like, okay, well, let's look into more of this. And they got, found yourself
Oh,
and a few other people have actually shown up and
they're
joined in, which
finding
is
more.
interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're finding more and more. It's growing,
Yeah.
and you hear more people talking about it.
There you go.
It started small, but now it's getting big.
That's it. And that's it. Even if it's just word of mouth and, you influence your people around you, your mom got you onto this. And then, I'm sure you're going to continue to influence her and help her to keep going with it. And people around you and your family and your friends are all
Mhm.
going to see this and see how well you're doing. And they're going to be interested in it as well. And
Right.
so I think that, that's all we can do really. That's the best way to do it is just get this information out there and try to help people get their lives on track.
100%.
Mhm. Well, great. Well, Victoria, I really appreciate you coming on and spending the time with us today to tell your story and to discuss all the issues that you were facing and that resolved with this. Um, where can people find you and learn more about you?
So I am promoting the carnivore lifestyle on Instagram, victoriaaferrazz with two A's and two Z's at the end, and then TikTok, vic.ferraz is where you can find that.
Great. Well, I'll put those in the description, and people can check those out. And I encourage them to do that, and just keep spreading the good word and getting the message out there for people.
Thank you. Thank you for your work
Oh well,
because
thank
it
you.
reached, me and it's helping so many people and it changed my life,
Oh, good.
really.
Well, that's the whole point. It changed my life, and it was something that I saw really help myself and my family and my patients. And so it was just something that I thought was important to get out there. So I'm glad that people are listening and getting help by it.
Uh-huh.
So that's good.
Waking up.
Yeah.
Everyone is waking up
Yeah.
to
Exactly.
the truth.
Oh, perfect. Well, thank you very much, and thank you everyone for watching. If you made it this far, and please do follow Victoria and see all her work. And I will see you again on the next episode. Thank you very much. Hey guys, thank you very much for taking the time out to listen to what I had to say. If you like it, then please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel and podcast. And if you're on YouTube, then please hit that little bell and subscribe, and that'll let you know anytime I have a new video out, which should be every week, if not more. And if you could share this with your friends, that would help me get the word out and let me know that you like what I'm doing. Thanks again, guys.